This whole process is so overwhelmingly unnecessary. And again, it all is rooted from the fact that the model in the beginning just looks like a mannequin. Hello to my Photoshop and photography YouTube family. Hope you're having a great day. Thank you for joining. If you like what you see today, I hope you subscribe and like and hit that bell to support me. Hey guys, if you want to support me even more and check out quote-unquote exclusive content, wink wink, please check me out at patreon.com/photoloco. Today I'm going to be kind of examining a video that I encountered on YouTube from Jesus Ramirez, aka the Photoshop Training Channel. And I followed him over the years, and I think he has talent and he has knowledge of Photoshop. This particular video confused me. This video, he talks about creating highly realistic skin texture in Photoshop, and he includes a download, which is basically a pattern that he created, which this video shows how he created it. And it's a bizarre video. I don't believe it's the best way to go about creating texture. There's a way that I'll show you that I think is superior to this, using the actual texture from the skin of the subject. He uses an 8-bit method, basically a filter, and then creates a pattern from it and uses that to apply. And well, let's just take a look and I'll show you what I mean and where my confusion is. All right, so we'll go ahead and start this video. It is called Create Highly Realistic Skin Texture in Photoshop with a free download.
Let me show you how to create realistic skin texture in Photoshop. My name is Jesus Ramirez. Let's get started. This is the portrait we're going to work with.
Okay, so right off the bat right here, this is my problem with the entire video. There isn't any time where your retouching should result in a model's or a subject's skin looking like that. What it looks like he's done is blurred the hell out of it, I guess in order to substantiate his method that he's about to talk about, which is to use this pattern to apply texture. There isn't any frequency separation technique, dodge and burn technique that I'm aware of that will result in this. So he must have blurred the skin prior to him starting the tutorial in order to show you this texture application. So let's just continue.
Adjustment layer icon, you can select pattern. Click on this drop down.
Okay, and so this is where you choose the pattern from. If you want the full details of the technique he's talking about, you can go view the video. Okay, so this is the end, well, not the end result. There's more things that he goes through, but this is the goal, is to apply this and then to use layer masks. He also uses Liquify to adjust the result and contour it to the natural curves of the face, and he does some other things.
Obviously, this is too harsh. The white point controls the highlights. This over to the right.
So
bring up the layer style.
So here he is refining a little bit, and he's using blend if to selectively apply the texture to various parts of the skin. And the technique-wise, this is not bad. This is fine, but this whole process is so, in my opinion, it's so overwhelmingly unnecessary. And again, it all is rooted from the fact that the model in the beginning just looks like a mannequin. It's not something that's natural.
Drag so that we can see the highlight here on her nose. The white point controls the highlights. Drag it to the left. Notice
so he's going over he's going over blend if and how it works.
It's also very blurry.
The next thing he's talking
again,
about
this is because of
is adjusting the depth of field to match the photo. So
the depth of field. And then blur the areas of the image that should be blurry, like her jaw.
So he's using the blur tool to attempt to match the depth of field. Okay, so
her neck and other area. Tuning over an area, you can certainly do so. The next is go into the brush tool from the toolbar. Then from the options bar, under the brush settings, bring the hardness down to 0.
Okay, so he goes into detail about the brush and hardness and all that. But basically what he's doing is creating a layer mask and then re-exposing. He created it, he inverted a layer mask, then re-exposed with a white brush to selectively paint back in the effect on areas of the skin that he wanted to, right? And then the result is, I think it's about right here.
Intense in most cases. In fact, I usually like to bring the opacity down to 0.
Now he's talking about bringing the opacity down to 0 and then creeping it back up. till
and
he
just
gets
increase
the
it
result that he
accordingly
wants.
until I get the result that I want.
Okay, so I think this guy is very knowledgeable. I think he's very intelligent. I think he's talented. I'm wondering if he just created this for YouTube fodder. Just let's get some content going. Again, in a realistic setting, I can't fathom any situation where a model's skin would end up looking like this as a result of your retouching to this point. There isn't any technique I'm aware of. Again, I believe, and I could be wrong, but I think he just set this up and blurred the skin so much that it lost all its texture, and so that he could then show off this technique. Okay. In my case, and in my opinion, and my suggestion to you is to, instead of doing this, just use the texture that was already there. You can do that very easily in Photoshop. Let me show you an example. Okay, so we have this portrait here, and I've already gone through a lot of retouching. I've done frequency separation, a 3-layer frequency separation that includes a medium pass layer. I did a typical 2-layer high pass and low pass frequency separation technique in order to remove the gleam that was showing on her nose like this. I've added some spotlights and some kind of natural light effects to her eyeballs to bring them out a little bit. Okay, and so this is where we're at. Now, I'm at a point where I would like to add some texture, okay? So here's what we can do. So I've turned off some of the effects that I've added, and I want to stamp visible. This will stamp and produce the final retouched image prior to the effects, prior to the adjustment layers and all the effects that I've done. Okay, so what we're going to do to do that is hold down Shift, Option, Command, E. Okay, so that will stamp visible. So what we're going to do now is right-click on Layer 5 and turn it into a smart object. So convert to smart object. Why are we doing that? We're doing that because after we apply this next effect, if we change our minds, we can do it on the fly. We can do this basically non-destructively. If you don't make it a smart object and you apply an effect, you have to undo so you can redo the effect. Okay, so it's a smart object. I'm going to go to Filter, Other, High Pass, and let's set it to 4. Depending on the size of the photo, the megapixels of your camera, and the resolution of the photo that you have in Photoshop, this number may change, and that's why we made it a smart object, because we can change our minds after the fact. We're going to click OK. We're going to turn this layer, or rather change the blend mode to linear light. Okay. Now, if we zoom in, we can clearly see that it is bringing out the texture of the skin. It's accentuating it, okay, as opposed to adding this pattern on top, which in this case would conflict with her natural texture. See, in his case, he had just a blurred out, whacked out photo that had zero texture. So in his case, it works because it's texture and it's not conflicting with anything else. If I were to do his technique here, it would conflict with the natural texture in her face, on her face. Okay, so we have this turned on. We're going to go ahead and add a layer mask. We're going to invert it with Command or Control I, and we're going to switch to a brush. Another thing that he does a lot, I notice, is when he wants to kind of lightly apply, and I think a lot of Photoshop people do this, and I don't understand why, is they adjust both the opacity and the flow. There's no reason to adjust the opacity. You can adjust the flow so much that you can get what you want. It's very rare that you need to go down to less than 1%. If you do, then you can pull the opacity start pulling that down. But really, flow is really all you need. Okay, so let's change it to flow, and let's change it to 20%. Just to get started, we'll switch to our brush. We'll go to a white brush, zoom out a little bit so we can see what we're doing, and we'll start to apply this texture. We don't want to go nuts with it. In some cases you might, and if you do, then you can increase your flow, or you can keep swiping. Okay, so let's turn off the texture that we applied. Turn off this layer and turn it back on. And there you go. You've just added texture to the portrait. Now again, I didn't go very heavy-handed on this. If you want to get crazy, you can really bump up your flow, or just keep swiping on 20. I mean, it's not. Eventually, you'll get to 100. Okay, and that's it. You don't have to contour. You don't have to worry about blend if. I mean, it's nice in advance to know blend if. It's nice. It's good to know it as a concept. But I think though that he could have made a much shorter video by doing just this and not blurring out the image so much initially. So that is how you can use the natural texture that's already within the face using a high pass layer. Make sure to make it a smart object so you can change your mind and wait. And let's say you do want to change your mind. You just double click on a high pass right there, and you can up the texture a little bit by increasing the radius, right? Okay, and this is to taste. So whatever you feel works for you, then by all means. Okay, guys, that's it. Again, I don't mean to throw shade or to talk smack about Jesus or his channel. I think he's very talented. I just found it a little odd that he started out with such a blurry photo and went over a lot of techniques that I think might be unnecessary. Okay, guys, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.